Samantha had been in an online relationship with Ryan for almost a year. They met in a gaming chat, connected over their love for horror films, and quickly bonded. There were late-night conversations, texts that stretched for hours, and video calls that made them feel like they were right there with each other, even though miles apart. They'd talked about meeting in person many times, but something always came up: work, school, personal obligations. But this time, things felt different. Samantha was determined. After months of talking, they finally decided it was time to meet. Ryan couldn't contain his excitement. He had planned the weekend trip to meet her at a small, cozy cabin in the woods, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. The moment Samantha agreed, Ryan started making plans, excited to finally hold her in his arms, to kiss her lips and see her smile in person. They had exchanged pictures, sure, but nothing could prepare Ryan for the way she looked in real life. Samantha had a calming beauty, long dark hair, wide, kind eyes, and a smile that felt like home. But when he saw her standing in front of the cabin, something felt off. She was smiling, but her eyes looked distant, almost empty. But Ryan brushed it off. Maybe it was just nerves. She was probably feeling just as anxious as he was. He smiled back and approached her, heart pounding in his chest. "Hey," he said, his voice trembling. "You look amazing." She laughed softly, but the sound was faint, as if it came from a long distance. "Thanks, Ryan. You too." They hugged, but when she pulled away, there was a strange chill in the air. The warmth of the hug didn't last as long as Ryan expected, and for a brief second, he felt a shiver run down his spine. They went inside the cabin, where the fire crackled softly in the corner. Samantha immediately made herself comfortable, sitting on the couch as Ryan unpacked. They chatted, joked, and even shared some of their favorite movies, just like they did during their late-night calls. But the whole time, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The evening wore on, and as the night grew darker, Ryan started noticing little things that unsettled him. Samantha's movements were stiff, unnatural. She seemed to glance at him strangely, like she was studying him, but her gaze never lingered too long. Her voice, too, seemed hollow. Finally, Ryan decided to take a break and went out onto the porch to clear his head. The cold night air hit him, and he breathed in deeply, trying to calm the rising anxiety that he couldn't explain. As he stood there, looking out into the woods, a thought crossed his mind. A strange, inexplicable thought. Samantha had been online for months, but she never once mentioned having family or friends or even a pet. She always seemed so alone. He shook the thought off. Maybe she wasn't as open as others. But as he turned back toward the cabin, he felt a pang of fear in his chest. The lights inside the cabin were flickering. He rushed back inside, but the moment he stepped in, he froze. Samantha was standing near the window, staring outside, her back to him. "Samantha?" he called softly. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned slowly, her face still smiling, but this time it wasn't right. Her smile was wide, stretching unnaturally, and her eyes, they were black, just two voids of nothingness. Ryan's breath caught in his throat, his heart racing. He took a step back, but his legs felt weak, like they were made of jelly. "Samantha, what's going on?" His voice shook as he spoke, the fear bubbling up in his throat. She tilted her head, her smile never wavering. But then, in a voice that wasn't hers, a voice that sounded cold and hollow, she said, "I've been waiting for you, Ryan. I've always been waiting." Ryan backed up further, his pulse hammering in his ears. What do you mean?" Her smile stretched wider, impossibly wide, her lips cracking at the edges as if her face wasn't meant to move that way. "I've been here for so long, waiting for you to find me." Ryan felt his stomach drop. She wasn't real. Suddenly the room grew colder, the air thick with an unnatural pressure. Ryan looked around desperately, his mind racing, trying to make sense of it. That was when he noticed the photograph on the wall above the fireplace. It was a photo of Samantha, a young woman with long dark hair and a bright smile. But there was something wrong with it. The woman in the picture had a date written on the back, October 30th, 2005. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. "Samantha?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. You're dead." The smile on her face faltered for the first time. Her eyes twitched. And in that brief moment, Ryan saw the pain behind them. The sadness. She had been stuck in this place for so long, alone, waiting for someone to remember her. But now, she was angry. She was hungry. "Help me," she whispered, her voice now sounding like a soft breeze through dead leaves. "Help me, Ryan, or I'll never let you leave." Before Ryan could react, the air around him thickened, and the room began to distort. The walls warped, the ceiling cracked open, revealing a dark, endless sky above them. The fire in the hearth went out, and all the warmth vanished. Samantha's figure grew taller, her features warping, becoming something monstrous. Ryan turned to run, but his feet wouldn't move. He couldn't escape. Not this time. The last thing he heard before the darkness consumed him was Samantha's voice, now twisted and hollow, echoing through the cabin. "You should have stayed online, Ryan.